Silence has a sound, and in the city of Ethelberg it was the deafening roar of a promise broken. 3 days had passed since the sky itself had wept in darkness. 3 days since the hope of a generation had been extinguished on a cruel, barren hill. The air, once filled with the teachings and laughter of the master, Elias, now hung thick and heavy, tasting of ash and finality. A shroud of fear had fallen over the great city, heavier than any funeral cloth. Doors were bolted, windows were shuttered, and the whispers in the cobbled streets spoke only of an ending. For those who had followed him, who had left everything to walk in his light, the world had shrunk to the size of a single, locked room. Their hope was not merely wounded, it was buried, sealed behind a stone of sorrow, too great for any of them to move. This was the world into which the dawn of the third day crept, not with a triumphant burst of gold, but with a timid grey light, as if afraid of what it might find. Yet in the heart of that despair, a flicker of devotion refused to be snuffed out. 3 women, led by the steadfast Ilara, rose before the sun. Their love was a stubborn, practical thing. It compelled them to perform one last act of tenderness, to anoint the body of the one they had loved with spices and perfumes. Carrying their fragrant burdens, they moved like ghosts through the sleeping city, their silent footsteps a testament to a love that outlasts death. Their only conversation was a whispered, anxious question that passed between them. Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb? It was a question of impossible weight, a symbol of their own helplessness against the finality of the grave. But as they approached the garden sepulchre, the first shock of the new day struck them. The great monolithic stone, a seal of absolute defeat, had been rolled away. It lay beside the entrance as if tossed aside by an unimaginable force. Hesitantly, they peered into the darkness of the tomb and found not a body, but an emptiness filled with a blinding celestial light. Within that brilliance stood 2 figures, their garments shimmering like captured starlight. A voice, calm and resonant, washed over them, dispelling their terror. "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" it asked. "He is not here. He has risen just as he told you." The words did not just enter their ears, they detonated in their souls, shattering the stone of their grief. Risen. The word was an impossibility, a revolution against the laws of nature and sorrow. They fled, a whirlwind of fear and ecstatic joy, their heavy spices forgotten on the ground. Ilara, however, found herself drawn back to the empty tomb, her heart a storm of confusion and desperate hope. Tears blurred her vision as she stood weeping, unable to fully grasp the miracle. Through her sorrow she vaguely perceived a figure nearby, whom she took to be the gardener. "Sir," she pleaded, "if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him." The figure turned, and in the gentle morning light he spoke a single word. "Ilara." It was his voice. The voice that had calmed storms, healed the broken, and called her friend. In that one word the universe realigned itself. The gardener faded, and the master stood before her not as a ghost, but as a vibrant, living reality. Joy, pure and overwhelming, erased every trace of her sorrow. He gave her a mission, a purpose that would define the rest of her life. Go to my brothers, and tell them what you have seen." She was no longer just a mourner, she was the first messenger of the dawn. Meanwhile, the other followers remained barricaded in their upper room, prisoners of their own fear. When Ilara burst in with her incredible news, they met it with doubt and disbelief. It was too much to hope for, too good to be true. The darkness of the past 3 days was a tangible presence in the room, suffocating their faith. And then, as evening fell, he was there. He did not enter through the bolted door. He simply stood among them, his presence filling the room not with a ghostly chill, but with an impossible warmth. His first words were a balm to their terrified souls. "Peace be with you." He saw their doubt, the questions warring in their eyes. Gently he held out his hands, showing them the deep, scarred marks of the nails. He showed them the wound in his side. These were not symbols of his death, but trophies of his victory over it. The wounds remained, not as a memory of pain, but as an eternal testament to the depth of his love. As their disbelief melted into awestruck wonder, he breathed upon them, a quiet, powerful gust of new life. "As I was sent into the world," he said, "I am now sending you. Go and bring this light to every dark corner." Days later, by the familiar shores of the Sea of Galilee, a group of them had returned to the only life they knew before him: fishing. Caelan, the passionate, impulsive man who had once so boldly proclaimed his loyalty, only to deny it in a moment of fear, felt the weight of his failure with every empty cast of the net. All night they toiled and caught nothing. As the sun began to paint the horizon, a figure called to them from the shore. "Friends, have you caught anything?" When they admitted their failure, he gave a simple instruction: "Throw your net on the right side of the boat." Weary but obedient, they did so, and the net was suddenly so full of fish they could not haul it in. In that moment of impossible abundance, recognition struck like lightning. "It is the Master!" one of them cried. Without a second thought, Caelan, wrapped in his shame, threw himself into the water and swam frantically toward the shore, toward the source of the miracle, toward his chance for redemption. On the beach, a charcoal fire was already burning, with fish laid upon it and bread waiting. Elias welcomed them not with judgment, but with breakfast. In the quiet intimacy of that shared meal, he turned to Caelan. 3 times he asked the question that pierced Caelan's heart. "Caelan, son of John, do you love me?" With each question, Caelan felt the sting of his 3 denials, but with each heartfelt, humbled answer, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you," a layer of his shame was washed away, replaced by grace. Elias did not ask for an apology or an explanation. He simply gave Caelan a new purpose, a sacred trust. "Feed my lambs, tend my sheep." The man who had failed so profoundly was now being entrusted with the Master's most precious flock. His failure had not disqualified him. It had uniquely qualified him, carving into him the humility and compassion necessary to be a true shepherd. This is the story of the resurrection. It is the story of how, on the 3rd day, light waged a war against the darkness and won an absolute, irreversible victory. It is the triumph of love over the grave, of hope over every reason for despair. But Elias did not rise again only on that long-ago morning. He rises again in every heart that chooses to believe in the impossible. He lives in every act of forgiveness that rolls a stone away from a buried relationship. He is present in every hand that reaches out to feed the hungry, in every voice that speaks peace into a room full of fear. The resurrection was not a single event in history. It is an eternal promise, an ongoing reality. The light that dawned on that first morning was not meant only for Elara or Caelan or the others. It was meant for you. It is the inextinguishable fire that proves no darkness is final, no failure is fatal, and no tomb can ever hold back the power of a love that refuses to die. The tomb is empty, so that our hearts may be full.